Going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. Special called meeting. It's February 22nd. Ms. Kinzer, will you call the roll for us, please?
Ms. Parker. Here. Ms. Kinzer's here. Mr. Harlan.
Here.
Mr. Fulbright.
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Present.
Ms. Irvin. Here. Mr. Sims.
Here.
Mr. Hooper.
Here.
Mr. Howell.
Here.
Mr. Lindsay. Here. Mr. Dudley.
Not here tonight. Thank you very much. Before we get into adopting our agenda, we're going to go into an executive session with our attorney just to kind of know exactly the correct game plan for this evening and know where we're going. So we'll stand adjourned, out of session for just however long we need to. Down to the bottom of the ramp to the left there, that last ring we always get. All right, we're back in session. Let's go ahead. We didn't adopt the agenda before we left, so entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. Motion from Ms. Parker, seconded by Mr. Moore. We ready to vote on the? Do we do a voice vote or does it matter? Shirley, mine's a yes, but I'm not pulled up yet. All right, we have an agenda for our meeting tonight. Obviously, we're here to discuss the future of the contract with our superintendent. It is scheduled to run through next summer. These conversations can always be hard. I think that for our discussion purposes, excuse me, we need to remain fact-focused. We need to remain, any personal thoughts need to be put aside. If you have any motives behind anything, check those before we make any decisions. With that said, I'll open up the floor. Or if Well, let me say something, because I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I think we can, well, I'm not gonna preface this. I'm just gonna go ahead and make the motion that we leave the contract as is and let it run through next summer. Have a second for Mr. Howe. Any any discussion? Sorry, I'm getting choked up. Okay. See, Mr. Howe.
I've thought about this and prayed about this long and hard, and it's difficult. I've been on the fence back and forth. I just want to make sure that we're looking at what's important here, and that's our students and our teachers. I know we've got one email from one teacher in support, and I've heard from numerous others in support of keeping our superintendent. I think there's a long way, something that says about having the continuity of leadership. In 8 years, we've had 3 different leaders with 3 different visions and 3 different ways. So, I mean, I'm not sure. I know that there have been issues. We have various few things here and there, but I mean, personally, I don't have anything glaring that would have cause for termination, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. You're going to need to give me a chance to pull mine up here. While I'm doing this, I will say that I, like Chad, have struggled quite a bit with this decision. Like I said, it's never easy talking about somebody's future. What I would say is, well, I've already said it because I made the motion that I wanted to say. All right, any other, Mr. Lindsey?
As you guys said, these are difficult conversations that we are faced with from time to time. But I think unfortunately, once we reach the spot that we find ourselves tonight, the cat's kind of out of the bag. It's hard to go back, and I think we have to be mindful that this board was presented with a buyout offer. We were presented with it. We didn't make the first move. That offer was presented to us first. So I just think once we reach that point, it's really, really difficult to go back.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no other comments.
So just so the board knows, really this would be more of a symbolic vote. If the vote passes or fails, you're still under contract with your superintendent.
That's my intent.
Okay, very good.
Yes. Well, we've already approved his contract whenever we hired him, so it would be motion to remain operating under the current contract. And I can just say a little bit of my thought behind that is it's been 18 months. There's been a lot of things going on in the world. But like I said, I've also gone back and forth quite a bit with some of these things. So I'll quit talking and turn it over. I believe we're ready to vote, Ms. Shirley. Yes, that looks right to me. Five. That does not pass. All right. I'll open Mr. Kinzer.
I move we amend his contract with a payout figure of $73,000.
Okay, I have a motion for the, proposed amendment. Do I see a second? Second from Mr. Moore. Any discussion? Ms. Kinzer, you still have your light on. Do you have any further discussion? Mr. Lindsay?
Mr. Chairman, as we entered into this process, my hope was that we could reach an agreeable number, and this number may wind up being agreeable tonight. But my hope was that we could reach a reasonable number that was fair to everyone involved, fair to Mr. Hickman, fair to the board, and just as importantly, fair to the taxpayer of Murray County. With that being said, I would like to ask Mr. Hickman if we amend this, if I amend this motion and it passes to a dollar figure of $40,000, will he accept that?
He would obviously have the opportunity to talk to his... You will not. Okay. That was a quicker discussion than I thought. All right. Any other debate on the 73 number? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to vote. This would be to amend the contract with a $73,000 buyout. Is that the correct wording? What do we need to do as far as making an effective date? Oh, it's in there, okay. Sorry about that. Well, if it's already in the amendment, we'll just go with that. Unless, who made that? Who made this? Ms. Kinzer, are you good with that? Okay. Yes. Yes. I didn't see any lights on for discussion, so I think we would be ready to vote. That's 5-5. That one fails as well. No, wait a minute. That's 4. It failed. Yeah, there were no's. Yeah, it failed. All right. We'll open the floor back up. Try again. Mr. Lindsay.
So, again, I was hoping we didn't get to this point, but with that number failing, I guess we're open, or I'm open to a number from Mr. Hickman.
Okay. You may take that time. We'll stand out of session until you return. All right, we're back in session.
Mr. Chairman, my client is not going to make an offer, or enter into such discussion in this manner. If the board wants to make some sort of offer to my client, Mr. Hickman, about his employment, then the board has that right, and we'll consider that. But we're not gonna engage in this process, because in essence, he's bidding against himself. We're just not gonna do that.
Right, okay.
Respectfully.
Fair enough. Thank you very much for that information. We'll open the floor back up. Mr. Lindsay.
Mr. Wilbur, I guess we have no other means by which, as a board, to negotiate than to do it in this setting. Am I correct?
As a board, the only way you can take action is in this meeting. I can say that, yes.
Is there any other suggestions? This is the opportunity. If not, Ms. Parker.
I make a motion that we approve the amendment with a reduced buyout of $45,000.
Okay, I have a motion for $45,000 amended. Second by Mr. Lindsay. Any discussion? Obviously, we're trying to find a number that's going to be workable for all parties. And that's where we're at. So, seeing no other, Mr. Wilver.
Just so I'm clear, if this motion were to pass, then that's gonna be an offer from the board to Mr. Hickman that I'll pass along and make sure that gets transmitted. So no, that's perfectly fine, the way it is, but just so you know, that doesn't change anything about
Would we
employment
need
contract.
to do, then can that be done in this meeting if they go off and discuss again like they did previous?
If they want to, yes, it could be done tonight or it could be done down the road, but I want to stress to the board, this does not end your contractual relationship with Mr. Hickman. This is just an offer to him to engage in further negotiations.
Okay, thank you. All right, I see no other lights, so I believe the motion, Mr. Sims.
Mr. Wilbur, so if, Mr. Hickman and his attorneys do not agree to discuss the amount tonight, we would have to set another meeting like this 15 days away.
Well, you got two options. You could recess tonight's meeting for another time certain. I'm hesitant to do that, honestly. Once you go past midnight, then we're on another day. I guess theoretically you could try to recess this meeting to another day, or you could renotice another meeting for 15 days down the road. I'd rather you not recess it. I mean, if you're gonna go this direction and leave something out there, I would probably prefer that you renotice the meeting, but it's certainly up to the board.
Okay, thank you very much for that information. Mr. Sims, keep going.
I guess without, I have a problem in voting either way on this if we don't know from Mr. Hickman or his attorney if they're going to make an action on it tonight. I feel like I want my vote tonight to be final. I don't want to have to rehash this again. And so unless Mr. Watley or Mr. Hickman wants to respond to that, I don't know.
If the board makes an offer as suggested by the motion, we will respond.
Could you do it in tonight's meeting, or would it need, okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions at this point? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to vote. It looks like 7 yes and 3 no. So that would be the proposed number, if you guys wanna take off and talk about it. We'll stand out of session.
Good job, it just is. Just to, since we're out of session, I'll go ahead and go off a totally different topic. Many of you may already know, but the impact fee for the county that was proposed was presented to the Senate subcommittee and a House committee this afternoon. The Senate asked for some amendments to be made, one of which was to dedicate the money for schools. So, school debt, yeah. So that was one amendment that we're looking forward to next week, and then it'll go to the House after that. But for right now, we're back in session for our regular meeting.
Mr. Chairman, in speaking to Mr. Hickman, I first want to correct one thing. It is not now, nor has it been, his desire to terminate his contract. I want to make sure that's clear. And we all know how local politics works, and there's a lot of discussion behind the scenes, at least that he was aware of. And so the bottom line is, this discussion is now happening as a result of that. And I want to, with all due respect to Mr. Lindsay, I want to correct that. This was not his idea. more politics than anything else. Understand that, in public policy. And so, in the spirit of that, and in the spirit of the fact that Mr. Hickman, has a family and wants what's best for his school and for the teachers and administrators, and most especially the students, he feels that moving forward at this point and trying to finish out his contract under the circumstances as he understands them to be, would be, frankly, not fruitful and not helpful, to those individuals, that I described. And so with that in mind, his position at this point is that if this board wishes to buy out his contract for, a payment of $65,000, even though that would not take him, to the end of this fiscal year in terms of what he would be paid, and he would be losing money. And I believe that it is not what he's entitled to under his contract, and I've told him that. But with that in mind, and with all the circumstances considered, he is willing to accept a negotiated agreement, to peaceably leave under those circumstances and under that payment.
Thank you very much, counsel. I believe now we have a little more information that we can go from. Is there anyone who'd like to make any amendment based off the new information? Ms. Kinzer.
I move we amend his contract with a payout of $65,000.
Okay, I have an proposed motion. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Mr. Harlan. All right, for discussion, Mr. Hooper.
Yeah, so just a couple of things. In principle, one, I don't believe in buyouts of any kind, especially if there's no clear and present need for it. I don't believe there is one here. Secondly, you have a hard time setting up anything that's going to be worthwhile and long-lasting unless you give it time to actually happen. To this point, I don't see that there's been any other direction headed other than forward. In my personal opinion, there's things that I have opinions about, but there are other things that, I see as good. And I can't move forward with terminating any contract unless we want to reevaluate it at the end of the school year. But in the middle, right here, it's not going to happen for me.
Mr. Howell.
I agree with Mr. Hooper. Trees don't grow in a day. They don't grow in a year. They're not a tree. They're a sapling. So I don't know what the expectations of a teacher are when we constantly change leadership. It's hard for a teacher to know what to do when you constantly are changing and there's turmoil. Personally, I feel that this is an embarrassment to Murray County that we're even in this situation. I don't know. I can move forward. I know that there are probably others that can't for whatever reason. But personally, I don't know. I can't necessarily vote for this either because, once again, culture doesn't change overnight, and I don't expect our school system to change overnight. And personally thought we were kind of moving in the right direction, but evidently I'm not quite the only one that believes that, but maybe in the minority that believes that.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on this topic? We have a motion presented to us for $65,000 as an amendment to the contract. Before I call for the vote, I'll also add to what everybody else has said. 18 months is a mighty short amount of time. I do think that we've all had some breakdowns in communication, some issues that we wish we would have done different on both sides. But I've had that in my marriage too, and we've worked through them. So I would like to echo what Mr. Howell and Mr. Hooper said. And at that time, if there's no further discussion, it looks like you're debating down there. Okay.
I'll just say, what I'm looking for is urgency. That's what I'm looking for. In 18 months, in 20 months, in 22 months, in 24 months, like, it doesn't matter. If we're at the beginning of the contract, if we're at the end of the contract, if we're at the middle of the contract. My expectation is urgency. The biggest struggle that I have had this year has been the failure to educate students. And I feel like that's our role. That's what we're charged with. Now, we're not responsible for the day-to-day management at schools. We charge one employee with that responsibility. When no algebra was taught for an entire quarter and then an entire semester, I'm struggling with that. So I know that didn't happen at some people's schools that they answer to their constituents, but that did happen at one of my schools that I do have constituents that I answer to, and that was a problem for me. So, you know, I agree 18 months is not a lot of time. What I'm looking for is leadership. What I'm looking for is acknowledgement that, yeah, we made a mistake. And at the end of the day, we have 13,000 kids that are looking to us and looking to our leaders to move forward. I've never left a board meeting so disappointed with how things have gone. I've been here for almost 8 years, and I've seen a lot. And I've been very disappointed with leadership. So, I mean, I feel like Mr. Hickman has said he wants to move on, and I feel like we should honor that. I'm not super happy with the number, but I will vote for it at this point because I think that we do need, as a system, to move forward, and we do need to be united in how we move forward. And I'm not sure that we have that unity that we need for our students, for our teachers. It's nothing personal. Again, it's just what I'm looking for.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Watley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to reiterate, Mr. Hickman feels that he's in this position, and this is with all due respect to what Ms. Parker had said. I understand you have a very difficult job, and so does he. And he feels coming here tonight that in as much as anyone can know or put their finger up and know which way the wind is blowing, that his job was at stake. I want to make sure it's clear because I've heard, again, Ms. Parker spoke of this. It is not, was not, his intention to leave his position. He feels that he must participate in this process because of the direction the feelings of this board are headed. And so I just want to make sure that's clear. There's nothing in any discussion I've had with him that would even suggest that he wanted any of this to happen. So he is dedicated, as a person who's from this area in particular, to this school system with every fiber of his being. He feels, though, that he's at a point where he has to make tough decisions based on what he perceives to be, at least, the desire of those who are the voting members of this board.
Thank you very much. I have two lights on. I will remind our board members to address their comments to to the chair, technically, and not get into a back and forth with any things that have been said. Just as that reminder. Mr. Howe.
So, 18 months. You put a director in the middle of a pandemic for which we were not prepared because, as we can all agree, the previous superintendent did not prepare us for this. Nor could he, probably, 100%. So, 18 months, I'm going to say, was behind when he came into the position because we had what we had. So, in 18 months, it's been difficult to find teachers in Murray County, in Tennessee, across the nation. So, not having some classes here or there, we presented some other options. Were they the best options? Were they timely? Maybe not. I don't know. But our job isn't to educate as the board. Our job is policy and budgeting. The day-to-day is them. We do have one employee that we are to direct, and his job is to educate or ensure that education happens. I don't know who he could have gotten to go through a pandemic. Our scores did not go down. Some of them actually went up. When many of our neighbors, in fact, I go out on a limb and say I think all of our neighbors, if I'm not mistaken, their scores went down. So at the end of the day, if I have communication issues or problems with leadership, at the end of the day, if our students are progressing when others are not, I'm not sure what my problem is. Is it me? Is it a board problem? Because at the end of the day, if our students are progressing forward where others are not, that's our goal. At least I thought that was our goal. That's my goal. So I don't understand why we got to this point.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other lights on. There is a motion on the, Mr. Hooper.
This is very brief. I think one of the biggest things that I was looking for was like leadership, like you said, but I think the fact that this whole thing is going on right now, and I think it was born out of board frustration more than anything. It's a personal opinion. I think that this shows a level of leadership that a lot of people don't want to even have to show, but when you have to show it, I'm glad that you did.
Thank you. Seeing no other lights, we have a motion on the floor to amend the contract to 65. About did that. 65,000, and to amend the contract as that number. There is no other discussion. I think we're ready to vote. We're still waiting on one vote, but I can already tell by 5 nays that motion does not pass. Okay, so we're 5-5. That still does not pass. I will go ahead and make a motion, since we're throwing out things. Obviously, we can't go back and vote on something we've already voted on technically. I would like to amend the number to $72,975.
It's certainly your discretion, Mr. Chairman, but you could still vote on the 73,000, but it didn't pass. There was no action taken, so it's still before the board.
I know, I wanted to lower it a little bit.
There you go. Okay.
No, do it 72,995. I just want to get us to a number that's agreeable so that we can move on with decency on all sides. All right, this is basically the same thing we proposed at the very beginning, less $5. Is there any discussion? Mr. Lindsay? Oh, wait, was there a second? Yeah, there was. I hadn't heard one.
I'll second it.
All right, second by Mr. Lindsay. Go ahead.
Mr. Hickman, will you accept this number?
Okay. All right. Seeing no other lights, I believe we're ready to vote. And with a vote of 5-5, that does not pass. Mr. Hooper.
I'd like to make a motion that we take this back up at the end of the school year. That would basically be amending the contract to not being a year and a half, but to a year, and basically table all of it. That would be my motion.
Okay, I have a motion to leave things as is until the end of the school year, we'll let them discuss that. Do you need to go out of session, or you fine there?
Well, I guess I need a little clarity on that too.
Okay.
Are we saying that the contract stands as it is and you guys wanna take this back up in another meeting at the end of the year? Okay, so that would be, you're just scheduling that.
Right.
You're scheduling that 15 days out. We need to make sure that we get out of the blackout dates, but if that's, yeah, if you wanna do that at the end of the school year, then we could do the first available.
I guess my motion would be to table. I kind of threw in my intentions with that. So it's just, the motion's just to table.
No, not an amendment, just to revisit it a certain time down the road, or to table is just postpone indefinitely. So, with this one requiring state law 15 days advance notice, this would be indefinite. You'd have to vote to bring it off the table, and you'd have to renotice it for 15 days, put it first on the agenda, and be out of the blackout period. So, essentially, you're just adjourning the meeting at this point and getting a date down the road.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you ever give up? Did you second that, or no? Do we have a second?
No.
Have a second from Mr. Howell. All right.
Just point of order,
Discussion, I
point of
think,
order.
Mr. Lindsay.
We don't have anything to table. We don't have anything on the floor.
I could change it to a motion to adjourn.
Okay. I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. Have a second from Mr. Howell. Any discussion? To adjourn. Mr. Sims.
So on the 65,000 vote, I did vote nay, and my reasoning on that was I still just have a hard time stomaching that number. If we would like to revisit that number again, and take one final vote, since that was Mr. Hickman's offer, I would like to reconsider.
Okay, we already have a... Yeah, all right, we don't have that's not a motion, because we already have a motion and a second on the floor for adjournment. Any other conversation about adjournment? Mr. Moore?
I would just say that, I think Mr. Lindsay said this earlier, regardless of how we got here, I don't think just kicking this to the side is appropriate at this point. I think it is, again, regardless of how we're here, we're at the point where I think we need to make a decision one way or another this evening and move ahead. I don't think it's fair to anybody to just wake up tomorrow morning and come to school in a point of limbo. I don't think that's appropriate. I think that puts Mr. Hickman in an awkward place, and I think that puts us in an awkward place. So I would ask my fellow board members that we should do our jobs in some way and come to some kind of resolution or answer this evening.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hooper?
Board Chair, I think my motion to adjourn was my intention, was to not push this down the road, but to let the contract play out. That was my intention, and I think that is doing just enough as what a board member should do. It's according to my conscience, and I think it's right.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Howell?
I mean, without an 11th vote, we're not going to get anywhere, it appears. We've been thrown out numerous offers, high and low, and everything in between, and it does not appear that that's going to pass one way or the other. I mean, I'm not sure we can be here all night and throw out numbers and add dollars and take $5 away, but it doesn't appear that that's going to change the outcome.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Parker, is this on the motion to adjourn?
So if we make a motion to amend it.
Can I, point of order? Here.
Yes.
If we wanted to make a further motion, then we would vote against adjourning.
Correct.
All right.
Just to take precedent under Robert's.
And may I just say this? I agree we need to settle something for Mr. Hickman's sake.
Okay.
As, going forward, whether it's, this is not personal. I know it feels that way right now in many ways, but the ramifications going out of this meeting, not settling this one way or another in whatever's best, he made an offer, he came down his offer, he rejected it. If anybody wants to revisit that, they'll need to vote against adjournment.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. Ms. Parker?
I just wanna say, I think how we got here, we started a discussion about having an evaluation.
Thank
We could have had this discussion at one of our work sessions, at one of our meetings. We didn't have to get to this point, but we did. And so like Mr. Lindsay said in the very beginning, the cat is out of the bag. As far as, I mean, I think we're getting into semantics, like, some people may not like the number that we end up settling at. I mean, I didn't love the 73. Obviously some people don't love the 65, but like, where we are as a district is we need some leadership. We need to move forward, and we could have had this discussion in a totally different way, but that's not the direction that our director had us go with it. And so you can talk about being embarrassed and all this other kind of stuff, but we're here because of the decisions that were made and what was brought to us and what we've had to do with those. That's why, in my opinion, I think it would be best if we revisit the motion. I mean, I'd be willing to make a motion to amend the contract at a certain amount.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor already, but
Can that not take does that not go above adjournment on Robert's rules? I am.
okay, I'll allow that.
I'll ask to amend the motion to adjourn to then vote on a motion to amend the contract at $65,001.
Mr. Chair, what I understand that you've allowed a motion to amend that's been seconded to, essentially have a buyout at $65,001 and to terminate the contract as of, Friday of this week. If that were to pass, then that would be an offer that would go to Mr. Hickman, and he would then decide whether or not he wanted to accept that offer. And then you would come back to the main motion if it didn't pass.
Okay. Ms. Irvin, was there a second to the amendment? Second by Mr. Sims. All right, Ms. Irvin, go ahead.
So like Kristen, we did express frustration at one meeting when we were talking about evaluation. But I just like for it to go on the record that there was no what's been implied synopsis. I was very shocked when I got this. My intent was, because, you know, in having employees in the past, and even teachers, you know, and principals, sometimes you get to have ongoing conversations with areas that need improvement. And fortunately or unfortunately, ours happens in a public matter. So that's my personal dilemma, is that always, you know, just because you express frustration doesn't mean that you're necessarily at the point of wanting to cut ties. But sometimes frustrations have to be articulated so that improvement happens. And I hate personally that we're at this point too. I wish it could have been handled in a different way, just for whatever that's worth.
Me too. With this said, I believe what our precedent has been is to let y'all discuss before we take the vote. Am I correct? That's what we've been doing? No, we have not. Okay, sorry. I was thinking about something different. Then I guess we are prepared to vote on this. That's kind of what I was thinking that we had been doing. Before we voted. Mr. Watley?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hickman's position is the board needs to speak. And in speaking, the board's going to be deciding whether or not it wants to part ways with Mr. Hickman. And then Mr. Hickman will consider what the board has to say at that point. The board needs to speak.
Okay.
And then he'll consider that. And that's,
Okay.
He's not going to say his position before that.
Thank you. All right, then I believe we're ready to vote on this number. 65,001.
So are we good as far as parliamentary procedure here? We had a motion on the floor to adjourn.
This is an amendment to that motion.
Amendment to the motion to adjourn. Okay.
Okay, that number has been approved. I guess now we will take up the motion to adjourn with this amendment of an offer. Well, no, wait a minute. If you can, we would like some sort of, yeah. Yes, that is correct. Yes. Okay, go ahead. We'll stand out of order. Out of session. No, we're amending it. So basically what we're doing is we're turning it into an offer and an adjournment motion at the same time. Yeah.
What I did, I just made that instead of making a motion to not do anything.
If he does not accept, or if he does accept, then you vote yes, and we're adjourned and accepted.
Yes.
No, then we have to vote against adjournment. Yeah. So is this? So if you vote yes, you're voting for a buyout. If you vote no, then it should not happen. My goodness. Yeah, who's in charge of taking her office again? The commission? No. He's not vacating.
He has to step down.
Or step down, or his constituents recall him. And by the time they recall, it's an election.
There are a couple people that have put their names in, yeah.
He was 21, he's younger than I am.
I'm talking to a couple others too. I think I started that.
That's what I've heard.
All right, we'll go back into session.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hickman's position is that he will accept the offer with a condition. The condition, which will defer to the chair or to Mr. Wilbur on this, is he wants to make a statement in accepting this offer, so.
I think that's fair. Do we need to vote on this? We don't need to vote on this first. No, because that would then go with the other. I'll just, like I've reminded everyone else, let's keep it, fact focused, keep everything, all the other stuff out. But yes, you have the floor, sir. I think you deserve that.
First of all, I want to echo what some of you said is, I didn't want this tonight. I've put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of tears, a lot of hours for the kids of this community. I heard once one of my good friends that I graduated with saying there's two kinds of leaders in this world, workhorses and show horses. I'm no show horse, but I sure am a workhorse. I've worked hard for the kids of this county, for the teachers, for the citizens of this county. I truly saw myself doing this for 3 years and beyond. Coming back home was a chance in a lifetime to help a district that was struggling, that was in trouble with the state and needs improvement. And through a pandemic, we had buy-in. Teachers worked harder than they have ever worked, and they work every day hard. This year, if you poll them, they'll tell you this year is even harder than it was last year. And we always pointed back to them as why we are successful. I know tonight for some of you, it's probably the direction that you see it, and some of you don't. However, I've told several of you at the end of the day, I don't want to hurt kids in this district. We've worked too darn hard to get, and I know how some of you feel about test scores, some of the best test scores this district has ever seen. A level 5 out of trouble, ATSI schools out. I don't want to hurt these kids anymore. They don't deserve it. And that's the only reason that I would even accept a negotiation, is to cause as little harm as we could to the kids, to the staff, and just to the citizens of the community. So, thank you.
Thank you. I believe I don't see any other lights. Let me just catch everybody up to where we're at. We had a motion on the floor to adjourn. That was amended to offer the 65001 number, which then went on to that motion. What we will be voting on now, one second. What we'll be voting on now is the motion to adjourn with that being verbally accepted. Am I correct? Am I correct, all parties involved?
I think the offer was made.
Yes.
Acceptance was made. That's a binding.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that we're all on the same page with that.
If I may clarify one other thing, Mr. Chairman, the discussion point, if it wasn't clear in the motion, was that there's a fairly quick lead time, but with that, there's an expectation of payment as well. So to make sure that those things are concurrently happening. So I assume that to be the case, but I just wanted to clarify.
I'll let you and Jake make sure that we have that clarified. Right. Okay. Mr. Howe.
So, I'm assuming this was effective Friday?
Yes.
Then that leaves the question of who will be our interim superintendent. We have not voted on that at all.
I believe we would treat it as if we had any other sudden vacancy in that position. I'm sure there's contingency plans, and we can go with that. Mr. Lindsay.
With that being said, we have a regular scheduled meeting next Tuesday night. Mr. Wilbur, are you okay if we place that on the agenda and take care of that issue at that time?
I think you have to, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Whatley?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hickman sees part of his role to make sure that there is an easy transition for the school system, so that he sees that as his role the remainder of the week. I don't know how the board feels about that. That's how he views it.
No, and I understand that and appreciate that. I wasn't trying to rush you out the door.
No, I just want to clarify that he's fully prepared to make sure that there is a line of succession, so to speak,
Yes.
to make sure there's a continuum of leadership running the school.
Then I'll clarify what I said then. When I said a sudden vacancy, we would treat it as that. It would be that plan with your guidance to those people. I definitely know you're more dedicated to do that than just to walk out the door and let it swing. But with that being said, I believe we are ready to proceed with an accepted offer and an adjournment. We voted on the amendment, not the final motion. Just, this is a matter of procedure. Well, we can. And that passes. We stand adjourned. No. Is that okay? Yeah.
Robert's